subject is taming the fear monster. And a lot of people live in fear most of their life. In fact, even in the Bible, there are 340 fear nots, because I guess the Lord knows a lot of people live in fear. So we're going to talk about taming the fear monster. And when it's all said and done, there's a whole lot more said than done. And people, they'd rather talk about something than actually do it. And so that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about, I've actually seen people at Ron's events who spent thousands of dollars on seminars and boot camps, and some never make an offer on a house. And so I wonder why it is that people sometimes are very productive even for several years and they fizzle out. And so most Americans, I hear, dream of being rich, but most of them die dead broke. In fact, 95% of Americans die dead broke, and yet they dreamed about it all their life, wanting to be rich. And so the answer, of course, is fear. One of the answers, of course, is fear. And I've discovered that people live that way most of their life, a lot of them. Now, some fear is good. Sometimes, it keeps you from doing bad things, keeps you from playing with deadly animals and playing marbles in the freeway, not paying your taxes, disobeying God, breaking your promises, all those kind of things. There's a lot of reasons why fear can be good. But the problem is that most fears are very crippling. And what is fear anyhow? It's an emotion excited by threatening evil or an impending pain or a desire to avoid it. We use words like anxious or doubtful. And so there are a lot of synonyms for that: dread, fright, horror, pain, terror, timid, a lot of different synonyms for it. And we're going to talk about three things here today. We're going to talk about what fear is. We're going to talk about what causes it. And then we're going to talk about how to conquer it. And that's the main thing we're after here, how you're going to deal with the fear so you won't be living in that all your life. Okay, there we are. We're caught up now. So we'll go to the next slide. Remember when you were a child, if you can remember far back that, I'm sure most of you can, ask yourself, what was I afraid of back then? And number one, you're afraid of the dark. You were told all your life, what might be able to get your way out in that vast unknown world. And, of course, afraid of the boogeyman, people out to get you. There's always somebody wanting to get you. And then snakes and spiders and stuff like that, ugliness and hate. There's only 5 kinds of snakes I don't like, and that's the little ones, big ones, live ones, dead ones, and the rubber ones. I don't like any of them. But most people are afraid of snakes. I lived down in Florida. We had a lot of them back then. And then the dentist. Oh, my, the dentist. Who doesn't dread going to the dentist? Mainly because of the pain. We can't. And nowadays, of course, it's about the dentist is almost painless. They come at you with those big needles, and you think it's going to hurt, but it doesn't even hurt anymore. But we don't like to go to that. And then the storms, sudden calamity. There's always something coming up. It seems like in your life you plan things out, and you think, oh, this is the way. I have it all planned out, and I think it's all going to work out. But then it doesn't. And then all of a sudden, you're surprised or even shocked because things just didn't work out that way. And then there's bullies, abuse and intimidation. Always somebody else wanting to intimidate you. I remember in high school there was a guy that played on the football team, and he had contacts. His actual glasses were 3 times thicker than mine, but he always picked on me and called me Four Eyes. And it was so funny. One night at a football game, somebody tackled him and he lost his contacts. And there were 2 football teams out there on hands and knees looking for contacts. Needless to say, he didn't call me Four Eyes anymore after that. And then there are your fear vultures when you were growing up. Number one was your parents, and they would say no or don't or I'll punish you. And I read one time that the average preschooler hears 460 no's and don'ts in one day. No wonder you grow up, afraid to hardly move because of all of those. And then the teachers, you went to school, and they say, oh, you're going to have to sit in the corner, and I'm going to tell your parents on you, or I'm going to flunk you, or whatever it was. It seems like we're going backwards sometimes on these slides instead of forward. Okay, then the next was your peer groups. I'm going to tell on you, you're stupid, I'll beat you up, and all kinds of things that you remember all the things that your peers did while you were growing up. And then the different experiences in your life. And one of them, you didn't make the team, or you can't have the job, or I don't love you anymore. It takes men about a year to get over a divorce, I've heard. And it's devastating when you get to that point in a good marriage. And it isn't a good marriage. And then you have to split up. It seems I understand that's why a lot of people are not getting married in this day and age. It's just because of those kind of experiences. And then, of course, your boss. You've been there. Are you late again? Will you ever do it right? And then, of course, Trump's favorite thing, you're fired. You remember when he had that program, he loved to fire people. He loved to be in control. And then, of course, your spouse. All you ever do is work, buy a house. Are you crazy? I'm just going home to mama. I remember years ago, I was going to buy a house before I met Ron. Before I actually went to Ron's events and learned better. Anyhow, there's a house right next door to us for $22,000. And I said, Barbara, I think I should buy this house and invest in this. And she talked me out of it. And now that house is worth a whole lot more, of course. But anyhow, that's what happens. Now, next thing we're going to come to is going to talk about how fear begins. How is it actually born? And how do you get to that point? Your imagination may prove right or wrong. But the fact is, imagination plays a part in every single fear that you have in your life. In fact, thoughts will be translated into action. You can count on it. The Bible says in Proverbs, as a man thinketh, so is he. So it depends on how you think. Your thinking will determine your actions. And it is important that you get your thoughts organized and in the right place so that you can deal with fear. Because however you think, that's what you're going to do. Now, fear has a price tag. It can drive you into loneliness and isolation. In fact, I understand that today there are a lot of lonely people out here. In fact, people can be right in the middle of a crowd and be lonely. Just being around people doesn't mean that you're not going to be lonely. But fear can drive you into loneliness and also isolation, being by yourself, and especially if you don't like to be around people a whole lot. I grew up thinking most people are a pain in the neck. I used to watch them on the carnivals that came by day and thinking, most people are just a pain to deal with. Well, anyhow, fear can drive you into loneliness and isolation. It can also block reaching your goals, fulfilling your dreams. Everybody dreams about getting rich and other things, but because of fear, they often don't do it. Now, here's some telltale signs of fear. First one is procrastination. You know what that is? That's never do today what I can put off till tomorrow. I'd like to do different, but I'll just wait and put that off till tomorrow. And procrastination can be defined as the art of keeping up with yesterday. And a lot of people are doing that. I found that people live either in the past or the future. A lot of people just will not deal with today. And so They are always procrastinating, putting things off, so they don't have to deal with today. And then there's the favorite phrases of procrastinators: hope and wish and maybe. I hope things will work out. You hear a lot of people say that. Or I wish things were better. Or maybe it'll be okay. And so, examples of procrastination are, number one, staying on the job that you dislike. Oh, my. A lot of people do that. I meet them all over the place. People hate their job, but they stay on it with, what else can I do? You know, I got to live, got to make some money. And then I've counseled a lot of people through the years who have refused to work on relationship difficulties, couples, and they want to avoid confrontation with the other one. People hate confrontation. That's where I've come in through the years, being a interim pastor in 45 different churches. And when they have conflict, they call me in. And so I have to deal with that a lot. And then people say, well, I just don't have time to do it. Excuse. Notice that word, excuse. You know what an excuse is, don't you? That's a skin of a reason stuff with a lie. Well, there's some reasons for continuing to put things off. And number one, you can escape any unpleasant activities. Then you have a fear of change or risk. Oh, people hate that change. I found that out years ago when I was dabbling in multi-level marketing. People would start out going gangbusters, and then all of a sudden they go right back to where they were before, right back to their comfort zones, back to the store, and just couldn't deal with change. And then, of course, it gives you a reason for blaming others. You know, if you can put things off, not my fault. And then it relieves your responsibility. Desire to avoid ever having to fail. You see, if I don't do anything, then I can't fail. Nobody can accuse me of failing if I, don't even do anything. And then you wish for things to happen. And then you're like, oh, everybody loves a pity party, don't you? Yeah. So if I don't do anything, and then I can stay in my misery and stay broke and stay people sympathize with me. And maybe I can get somebody else to do it. I don't know. Well, one thing is avoiding work. See, I read years ago that people actually waste a lot of time every year just avoiding work on the job. And then avoiding commitments. I found today it's hard to get people committed to anything. They just don't want to commit. They don't want to be pinned down. They want to be footloose and fancy free. And then there's different kinds of fear. There's a fear of life. Some people are just afraid to go out here every day and live. Then there's a fear of death. No need for a fear of death. Best thing you can do is trust Christ as your Savior. And as the inspiration used to sing in Bryson City, then I'm a winner either way. Whether I live or whether I die, I'm a winner either way. See, I'm ready to go. And so, and then how many people nowadays are dealing with this insanity thing? We call it Alzheimer's. I told my family, if I get to that point, do like the Eskimos do. Just put me in a canoe and send me out in the ocean and whatever. Then we fear the unknown. The unknown is what I can't control, and we don't like to be out of control. And then the 10 worst fears in the United States. The first one, top of the list, what I'm doing right now, speaking before a group. A lot of people just don't like to do that. They can't stand it. And then a lot of people are afraid of heights. And then I don't know about you, but I don't like insects and bugs. And then, of course, people fear financial problems, and so many people have them. And some people fear deep water. I never did like to go in murky black water. And then we fear sickness, we fear death, and we fear flying. I've got about 700 hours flying airplanes. I found that there's two groups of people when it comes to flying, and that is, some of them will quote in the Bible, "Lo, I'm with you always," so they don't want to even go up. And the others will quote, "I'm going to mount up with wings as eagles." And I found out they're in one of those two categories, and don't try to change their mind. And then we fear loneliness, we fear dogs. All right, social relationships with people, desire to be normal. What in the world is normal? I don't know about you, but I'm not worried about being normal. If what most people are doing is normal, I don't think I want any part of it. But a lot of people fear if I don't fit in, then, people just won't like me or something. And then, of course, the fear of rejection. It goes right back to, again, if I don't try, if I don't reach out, then I can't get rejected. If I don't make an offer and it doesn't follow through and they say no, then, I don't know if I can handle that. Well, you'll get over that. And trying to meet the expectations of others, if you're going to live your whole life like that, you'll never be happy, I guarantee you. And then the fear of failure. If I don't try, I can't fail. That's a fact. If I don't do anything, how can I fail? And then the fear of taking risk is really the fear of things that you may not be able to control. You've been around Ron much, he says, I'm in control. And he is. He's in control. You know why? Because he knows how to be in control. He has the knowledge to be in control. He has the experience to be in control. And guess what? If you listen to him very long, you'll be in control. And you won't be at the mercy of everybody else telling you what to do, including the IRS. Okay? Now, what does fear do to you, actually? Well, it puts you in la-la land. Mentally, you sit around, daydream, and wish and hope. Oh, I'd love to do this, that. But then you don't take action. You don't do anything about it, see? And also, fear can make you have a loss of willpower. You like to do more, but you don't do it because you're afraid to launch out and take a risk. And sometimes even loss of memory. And then the inability to concentrate. A lot of people sit around and just daydream all the time. I heard once that the average person wastes about, I think it's 12 to 14 weeks out of a working year because they don't really concentrate on their job. Lack of ambition, lack of ability to set goals. And so that's another. And fear is based on fantasy or facts, actually. And the person who fears when facts are present will not believe fears can be removed as long as the facts are present. Therefore, you got to understand that it's the reaction to facts, not the facts, that defeat you. I repeat that. It's the reaction to facts, not the facts, that defeat you. Okay? And if you're going to do something, then it's going to have to be believable to you. Do you actually believe that you can do better in your financial life? And or you probably won't take action and do anything about it. And so there are degrees of fear. There's apprehension, that's sweating a little. And then there's anxiety, that's sweating a lot. And then there's panic, breathing hard. And then there's terror, you just run for your life. And that's what most people do. If they have fear about something, they just run from it. And so they do something else. Now I want to talk a moment about the myth. Notice I said myth of luck and fate. Actually, a lot of people will say, well, someday my ship will come in. Really? And my question to that person is, has it ever sailed? Your ship has never sailed. It ain't going to come in, is it? And then I met people who say, well, if only my luck would change. Yeah, well, if there was such thing as luck or fate, I don't know about you, but I do not believe in luck or fate. I really don't. I remember when I was a kid on my dad's amusement park, we had a duck pond, and you go around, you pick a number, and you can get a prize. And I remember one day we had a box of rabbit's feet on there for prizes. And I remember holding up those rabbits one at a time. And I said to myself, you know what? You sure didn't do that rabbit any good. And then I held up another one. Didn't do that rabbit any good. Didn't do that rabbit any good. I went through the whole box that way, and finally I just put it down and said, I don't think I believe in this luck stuff. And I still don't. Okay, here's what Marshall Silver says about luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Now, since you have, in the providence of God, met up with Ron LeGrand, that's the preparation part. Okay, if you are smart, you listen carefully, and you will prepare yourself so that when you go out here and meet the opportunity to buy some houses, then you'll be ready. Okay, and so that's what it's all about. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. In other words, forget this luck stuff and get ready and use the brain God gave you and know how to do it. And then I have people say to me, well, things just haven't worked out. And I say, what things are you talking about? And who decides? And then the one I really like, years ago, I met a lady at Ron's event, and she was a hairdresser by trade. And she said to me, life just keeps getting in the way. And I actually chuckled and said, really, who made the choices for it to get in the way? Okay. And here she had been to all these events, and she hadn't made one offer on a house because life just gets in the way. Well, life is always going to get in the way if you choose to let it get in the way. I guarantee you that. Oh, and then this next one. If only he or she would change. Don't hold your breath, folks. I've counseled couples through the years, and if only my husband or my wife would do this or that or the other, if only they would change. They're not going to change, okay? And they got a saying over in Bryson City, where my wife's from, that people are sot in their ways. Well, they sure are. Most people are sot in their ways, and that's the way they're going to be. And if you're going to wait for them to change for you to improve your lifestyle, then you never will, okay? So you don't wait for somebody else to change. Now, what are some solutions to fear? All right. Number one, you got to admit the object of fear for what it really is. Ignoring fear will not destroy it. It won't make it go away, okay? And so you've got to say, okay, this is what I'm afraid of. And I don't know about you, but when something appears to be too big for me to handle, I just sit down and visualize, what is the worst that can happen to me? What is the worst it can do to me? Is it going to have power over me and I not have the choices that I really want to have? Or is it going to hurt me in some way, either physically or financially or emotionally or whatever? Well, you got to admit for what it really is. You can't just ignore it. And people are good at ignoring what they don't want to deal with. Boy, I've dealt with so many people through the years, and they won't make the choice to deal with their situation and change it. Now, you got to be in charge, folks. And you can't just be run by your emotions. You've got to think things through, and you've got to write things down, and you've got to do some planning and really think through. You see, fear is the most powerful of all the emotions. And so you can only overcome by deep emotions and choice. For instance, love or hate or ambition or greed or self-preservation, whatever it takes to get you moving, that's the choices you're going to have to make if you're going to overcome fear, because it's the most powerful of all the emotions. And then the next area we get into is fear and values. The values that you have. A value is enduring. A value is a belief. And a value specifies a desirable or appropriate way for you to behave. And I don't know if you sat down and thought about your value system. I have many times. But you need to ask yourself, are there discrepancies in my feelings about values? Okay? Excessive anxiety about values, it's going to immobilize you. And you got to think, what is my work ethic? All your life you've heard people say this. You've got to work hard. You got to give an honest day's wages for an honest day's work. And you can't get something for nothing. And if your value system somehow says, you know what, I can't go out here and make a lot of money without putting in a lot of hours, because that would be wrong. That would be unethical. Well, if that's the way you're thinking, then that's the way you'll do it. You won't do anything because you'll say, well, that's, and especially, you know, if you're a religious person, you say, well, you know, that would not, well, I'm going to say more about that a little later here, but you think that through, okay? And just because that's what you've been taught, that doesn't mean, you know, that it is actually true. Now, can you make decisions? A lot of people can't. I've talked to so many people through the years that just couldn't decide about things, and I have to come along and help them think it through. And think about the people that have influenced you in growing up and so forth. And what were the values that were forbidden by your family and your relatives and your friends? And you're going to have to change your values, your beliefs, or both, in order to change your behavior. Okay? It's and so we need some value clarity, and that's really knowing what you actually want. And poorly defined values, if you can't identify your values, then making life choices is going to be extremely difficult, especially if you want to improve your situation where you are. See, ambiguous values hinder an adequate sense of identity. And so you need a conscious awareness of what your values are. And you're going to have to think about the values you learned while you were maturing and growing up. See, the ones you learned as children are going to have to be integrated with those you hold as adults. And you can't trade hours for dollars and become really wealthy. You're going to have to go beyond that concept, okay? And so you're going to have some conflicting values, and change in conflict of values are going to produce some anxiety, and you're going to cause you to be uneasy about it. So you got to do so. And the key to understand and accept the conflict is part of your personal development. We want everything easy. We want everything convenient. But sometimes you're going to have to deal with some of this conflict between values and behavior, and you're just going to have to get real, you see, and so an authentic person can behave according to your own beliefs, not according to the expectations of others and everybody else. You probably spent a lot of your life trying to please other people. So now you're going to have to think it through yourself. And the closer you come to behaving in accordance with your true values, then the more peace you're going to enjoy, okay? And so what is your responses to fear objects? Well, they can either be negative, you can try to avoid it, or you can run from it, or you can project it and rationalize it. Oh, people love to rationalize, don't they? And give excuses. So a positive way is to face it, and then, as you heard Ron say earlier today, you learn how to delegate it to other people. The things you don't like to do, or things even if you want to do it, if you're going to really get along in the financial world, you're going to have to learn to delegate. Now, you're going to have to admit the object of fear for what it really is, because ignoring the fear is not going to destroy it and not going to make it go away. So, going back to what I said earlier, you got to visualize the worst that may happen, and if it's going to see if it has power over you or able to get you or hurt you, and then you're going to have to take some risk.